What's up everybody, my name is TF-Brit and this is my first ever video surviving 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore. My only goal is pretty simple, don't die. If you don't know by now, dying in Hardcore means game over. There is no respawn. First things first, a nice strong name for my world that's easy to remember. And we can't forget to click that hardcore button and jump into this world for the very first time. And in typical failing fashion, I forgot to make sure the day counter was turned on for the first day or so. So for the time being, you get to see this big ugly number on screen. Day 0 was about what you would expect. I made a crafting table, crafted wood tools, immediately swapped them out for stone tools, and then chucked away the wooden tools like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it kinda did. I quickly gathered some coal, and it was at this moment that I realized that the day counter was turned off. As time goes on, you'll see I make all kinds of professional Minecraft errors similar to this one. Anyways, I spent the rest of the day cooking steak and stocking up on as much food as I could because I don't want to be known as the guy who starved to death in hardcore Minecraft. I pretty quickly found a village and decided this was a great place to live out the next 100 days. Inside the very first chest I opened was a water bucket. If I was speedrunning, this world would be an amazing start to my game. The next thing I did was claim a bed and then spotted this little cave right outside the village, but I was too scared to go in there just yet. As day 0 came to an end, I spammed the bed B-dub style to avoid any monsters attacking me or my new friends in the village. On the morning of day 1, I found a ruined portal next to my village. Any speedrunners watching this video are probably losing their minds right now. I feel like this is a pretty good seed for that. I also found a clock and decided to keep it in my hotbar for the entire video, and even remembered to collect the gold block with a stone pick before I left, because as all professionals know, a stone pick is the tool you use. I was still pretty scared to go into caves, but I really needed some iron, so it was time to take a risk, and this seemed like a safe enough cave to do so. But I didn't even make it to the shadows before I came face to face with the scariest mini-boss in all of hardcore Minecraft. And then had a few frightening moments and close calls before I could even get to the shadowy areas. But after utilizing my PvP skills, I did manage to collect enough iron to smelt up and craft my very first iron pick and a sword, and now I feel a lot safer already. Day 2, with my new armor and tools, I was blindsided by a skeleton with a flame bow. Yesterday, that probably would have killed me, but today, I'm fearless. Anyways, I collected enough iron to finish my armor and tools, and good thing too, because as soon as I left the cave, I was blown up by a creeper, and that definitely would have killed me a few minutes ago. I found a chest that I hadn't robbed yet, and then I went around and locked up my new friends that may not like it, but it's for their own good. I exterminated a few pests around town, and then while making my way to diamond level, I found this cave and for some reason thought that it would be fun to explore, but I quickly barricaded myself and picked off the mobs one by one. While running for my life, I found my first diamond, so I built a wall to protect myself, and then I was free to collect my riches. It was only one diamond, but I've been told Rome wasn't built in a day. And look at that, a second diamond! Running on adrenaline, I went into the cave and fought face to face with my enemies. I explored through the night and into day 4 and mined all through day 4 and day 5 and found a few more diamonds. And by the time I made it back home on day 6, I had a grand total of 9 diamonds. Makes me wonder, how many days did it take to build Rome? Most of day 6 I spent building a wall around my entire village. This will help keep my friends in and my enemies out. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done. Maybe if we do a 200 days video, we can build a better looking wall, but for now, this'll do. On day 7, I found some exposed coal on a beach near my village and found a new village just over the hill. I figured I might be traveling a lot, so after stealing a saddle from the new village, I found a horse and claimed it as my own. Leave a comment what you think we should name him. Day 8, I took my newfound friend exploring and collecting some materials along the way. Day 9, I was still out exploring and found yet another village not far from home, and I spent the rest of that day collecting more resources. Day 10, I found another ruined portal, and this time I used my iron pick to collect the gold blocks. See, I am learning. I also planned to build with a lot of spruce, so while I was out, I cut down a few trees and picked up the saplings before heading home. Day 11, I decided to light up my land to help keep my enemies from spawning inside the wall. And then I did the most dangerous thing so far, and I pillared up to get a good look at my land. Day 12, I began prepping for my first actual build, and I was going to need a lot of stone. Apparently my land is cursed with baby zombies. I've seen so many in this world, but I went into the darkness and lit it up so that no more of these babies would plague my lands. I had a few close calls with some creepers, and then stood around at night to make sure no mobs could get in or spawn within the walls, and once I knew it was safe, I drifted off to Dreamland, knowing me and my friends were safe from harm. On day 13, I planted the spruce saplings that I collected earlier, and despite my land being overpopulated with crops, I for some reason felt it necessary to start my own wheat farm, which I would nearly never use. But regardless, I punched some grass and planted some seeds. And then used the little bit of bone meal I had to speed things up. On day 14, I planned to collect livestock so I had a renewable source of food. Kinda surprised that it took me 14 days to think about food in hardcore Minecraft. That took me a day and a half, and the rest of day 15, I collected more coal and iron. On day 16, I stood around and did nothing all day while I smelted stone. On day 17, it was time to start tearing down a few of the village houses in the way to make room for my first build of the video, a fountain. It took me 3 whole days to get the design right. I didn't show it, but I had to rebuild it a few times because these circles in Minecraft are hard. By day 19, the fountain was basically done, but I still needed a floor, so I started smelting, and while I waited, I fed and bred my livestock. I also decided to check in on my wheat farm, and despite being right next to it for 3 days, it hadn't grown at all. It was probably because the farmer there was harvesting and replanting, but I'm too much of a professional to realize that. Anyways, I placed all the smooth stone that I had in my possession, and when I ran out, I spent the rest of the day collecting more cobble. While in the dark, shadowy areas, I was startled by thunder so loud I might have tinkled a little bit. Once I knew I was safe from Thor's wrath, I used some advanced Minecraft skills to get a good look at the nearby mobs that I couldn't see in regular viewing mode. Then, before heading home, I took a quick nap in the area that I knew was safe from danger. Day 20, I stood around and watched some stone smelt to smooth stone and nearly finished the floor of the fountain. But back to the mines for me, where I came across this really cool lava glitch and recorded it just to show you guys. Back to mining, I came across another cave and was blindsided by a witch. I never really realized how dangerous witches actually were until this moment. All I could think was how I was about to lose 20 days when I could have literally just turned around and walked away. After defeating the opposition, I attempted to explore the cave to hopefully find more diamonds. It was a pretty quick mining session, but I did manage to find a total of 7 diamonds, which takes my total up to 16, so I'm basically rich now. Day 22, I took my horse out for a little ride back to collect coal from the little peninsula thing from earlier, and with the amount of stone I need for my builds, I'm burning through this stuff at rapid pace. I also collected some nearby sand for my house because I'm going to need a lot of sandstone, and when I was done, I just left the giant hole in the land and rode my horse back home, where for some reason I wanted to see if I could jump high enough to climb on top of my house, and then I started smelting sand into sandstone because, as we all know, that's how that works. I promise you, I have played this game before. I actually did need glass, so this wasn't as bad of a fail as it could have been. Anyway, day 23, back to the sand hole because I realized I could just mine the sandstone that was already there to get the resources that I needed for my house. I started smelting sandstone, and I'll be honest, I can't remember why, but I know I need more stone yet again, so back to mining I go. I also have a plan for all this wool, but that's a project for 200 days, so make sure you subscribe. In an attempt to avoid the dangers of mining and to switch up the content a little bit, I decided to look for shipwrecks because I know you can get diamonds and find treasures. And it didn't take me long to find a shipwreck, but unfortunately the chest didn't have any diamonds. But it did have this treasure map. I thought I could get lucky and find the treasure before day 25, but even using this little math trick that I found on the Google, I dug hole after hole after hole. And on day 26, I finally found the treasure chest, and it only had 1 diamond. I seriously wasted 3 whole days For 1 diamond, I'm never hunting treasures again. Day 27, it was time to start working on my house, and conveniently enough, I didn't have to move or rearrange anything that was inside the house. It took me a total of 5 days to build the house, and I didn't realize it at the moment, but I was going to have to move the decorative blocks when I started playing with the villagers. But that's a problem for future Brit. For now, I'm going to build this chimney and move on. I also realized that the village golem had somehow made his way outside of the wall, which made me concerned for the security of the village. On day 32, I finished smelting the stone I collected and finally finished the floor of the fountain. I forgot to finish the water though, and I'd have to come back later because right now I was crafting up some walls to make a safe path about 100 blocks away from my village to start a villager breeder. I was going to need many villagers for many projects. The morning of day 33, I did a quick test to make sure I could fit a boat in the path between my village and this new area. And for the rest of the day, I went around and collected more beds and a couple of job blocks for the breeder. On day 34, construction of the breeder began. It didn't take me long since most of these breeders are pretty simple designs. On day 35, I started moving over villagers, and I figured the 2 that had been free roaming my village were the perfect 2 to populate my entire world. If you've ever tried to move villagers, you know how painstaking this task can be. I really wanted to kill this man, but I needed him, and he knows that. I bound his hands and feet and carried him off over the hill away from the only family he's ever known. On day 36, I found some of the villagers I locked away earlier were missing from their confinements. The word must be getting out that I was on the hunt. This guy must really want to die because no matter how hard I try, he refuses to climb into the breeding chamber. It took a little persuasion, but eventually I got him in. Now I got to do the whole thing all over again. It didn't take me nearly as long as I was able to get this villager into the breeder at the start of day 37 and then immediately started breeding. At this point, I should expect things to not go smoothly. Somehow, my babies escaped and tried to run to freedom. You might want to look away for this part. Finally, it was time to test and make sure I was going to be able to move the villagers to my village quickly and easily. This was the first step of the process to go as smoothly as I expected. On day 38, I finally took a moment to acknowledge the village had a surplus of wheat, which was good for me because I was going to need a lot of bread to keep my villagers breeding. I somehow even managed to miss the piles of hay bales just laying around. On day 39, I threw some bread into the breeder chamber and admittedly stared a bit longer than necessary while waiting for the babies to drop. Then I went back to my village to clear out a few houses in preparation for my first farm. Can you guess what it is? If you guessed an iron farm, you'd be correct. It took me 2 days to get the basic shape dug out and the foundations placed. Then I wasted a lot of wood crafting composters, which are the only job block that I can't use with this design. So I spent a good chunk of the rest of my wood crafting barrels. On day 41, I placed the barrels into the farm and then, as quickly as I could, collected babies and started transferring them from the breeder to the farm. I wish it was more exciting than that, but that's all I did over the next few days. All the while waiting for the impending nitwit that I'm sure would grow up in my pit before the farm was done. I needed 20 total villagers, and just as I thought I was finished, one of these idiots decided to get himself stuck in a wall. I stood around waiting for the babies to grow up, and since I had enough to start spawning golems, I started to wonder if the villagers I had locked away were going to affect the spawn rates of the farm. But before doing anything drastic, I went back to stand and wait for the babies to grow, and of course with just a couple left, I get a nitwit. Don't worry, he'll be dead soon. But that means more villagers moved into the farm. I didn't want to wait for the babies to grow, so I used one of the locals. Not that it mattered, because as soon as I got him into the farm, another nitwit showed up. So I took out my frustration on camera this time. Only one baby left, and surely I won't get 3 nitwits in a row, right? Good thing I have a few adults locked away around town. Kind of ironic that the nitwit ended up getting himself trapped in a wall. It was almost worth letting him die, but I wanted to look him in the eye when he took his last breath. The rest of the villagers started looking at me different after that, but as much as they hate me, this is what's best for everyone. They can't stop me anyway. I finally got to the point of placing water in the farm, but I was going to need hoppers and I was out of iron. It's kind of ironic that I need more iron to start farming iron. I smelted up what I needed to craft 5 hoppers and then stopped in at the mines to collect some lava, and technically the farm was finished. It may have taken me 11 days, but it's done. Only problem is, it's not working. So now I gotta find out why. I started with the obvious and collected all of the job blocks inside the village that were not being used in the farm. But unfortunately, that didn't seem to work. So it was time to try something drastic. This next part is not for the faint of heart. Sadly though, still no luck. Maybe it's because the spawn cap is hit? I've only seen this done on TV and I was very nervous, but luckily I killed the golem without taking any damage and I got 4 bits of iron without looting. When that didn't work, I noticed the torch that I placed inside the farm was missing, so maybe that'll fix the farm. Still no luck, but I remembered there was a cave below the farm as well. So I dropped down and filled the entire thing with dirt, which took 2 days because I had to go collect dirt to finish filling the cave. It took me a total of 15 days, but once the cave was filled, I heard the most beautiful sound ever, the sound of dying golems. I was clearly ecstatic at this point. I spent all of day 53 AFK at the iron farm just to see how efficient this farm really was. I only got a stack, but for one day, I'll take it as opposed to mining. Also, I knew I'd basically always be working in the area, so I wasn't too worried about running out. Day 54, I began collecting more resources for my next build. I found myself in the midday battle with a single skeleton that somehow managed to get me down to half health. Of course, I won the battle in the end though, being a professional and all. With so many close calls, I decided it was time to go diamond mining, and this time, I wasn't coming back until I had enough for a full set of diamond gear. Like most things in this world, it took me a few days, 3 to be exact, but by day 57, I was fully decked out and felt much more protected than ever before, and now I'm ready to take on the world. On day 58, after collecting the rest of the materials needed and clearing out the area, I began construction on renewable food. That's right, it's time we enter the industrial age and build an automatic cow cooking farm. Well, there's really no such thing as an automatic cow cooker that I'm aware of, but this is as close as it gets. I grabbed some wheat from one of the many nearby wheat farms and bred my livestock. And while I wait for the farm to fill up with cows, I take this opportunity to start another build, a pig and sheep pen. It's day 60 and somehow I've let a herd of sheep escape their enclosure. It's these kind of screw ups that make me wonder if I'll ever really be considered good at this game. Out of frustration, I made a new rule. Any livestock that escapes no longer gets herded back into the pen. Instead, they meet the end of their hardcore series. On day 61, I'm back to trying to build my sheep and pig pen. I've made a few mistakes along the way, and it took me a little longer than expected, but after surviving the sheep escape and placing and replacing fence posts, the pen is nearly done. On day 63, I took a break and went out to a nearby village to steal their hay bales for my livestock, and then continued building into day 64, but the pen is officially done. I felt like I had enough adult cows to keep the farm efficient, so I broke the blocks holding in the babies, and now I just gotta wait for them to grow and we can finally test this thing. For the rest of day 64 and all of 65 and 66, I spent collecting more materials, and on the morning of day 67, I began to build yet another build, a butcher shop, to cover the cow farm. It took me another 2 days of placing and replacing blocks because I constantly made mistakes, and I also logged into the world and there was this weird light glitch going on in the sky, but the work must go on. It's day 69. Nice. Anyway, I finally got around to checking the cow cooker, and with one batch of cows, I got like 20 cooked beef. Those are numbers I'm happy with. And then I went back to building the butcher shop. You may have noticed I don't build interiors. That's because I'm not very good at planning, and I also only have 100 days and spent most of it building anyway, so maybe interiors is a 200-day project? Or maybe we never get to them. Either way, I don't really care. On day 71, the butcher shop is finished. It's a little closer to the sheep pen, but that's probably fine. I also checked on the progress of the iron farm, and clearly it's working far beyond my needs. With only 29 days left, I did have one final build that I wanted to make, and it's a big one. I was nervous I wasn't going to be able to get it done in 29 days since all the other builds took so long to make. So I wasted no time gathering materials. I would primarily be building with stone brick, so I needed to collect a lot of stone. And while I was minding my own business, I was attacked by a zombie. Luckily, it was only one, so it was no real threat. But on my way home, I ran into the mob notorious for ending hardcore series, and being day 73, I panicked and attempted to run away to safety. Apparently, this baby was immune to damage, so after taking a few hits, I retreated again and risked my life running through the night back to the safety of my village. Day 74, I was back in the cave collecting andesite. And then day 75, I went out to a swamp about 1,000 blocks away to collect mangrove wood because I need red stairs. And I felt this was way safer than going into the Nether for Nether-Brit. Remember, my only goal for the first 100 days is to not die. So I'm playing it safe. After 2 days, I only got 4 stacks of logs, and then I struggled to find my horse and nearly panicked again, but made my way back home and dropped off my materials. Day 78, I was back on the horse, this time heading out to a dark oak forest to collect some logs, but I also wanted to make sure I had the saplings so in the future, I wouldn't have to come out this far. Day 79, I finally had all the materials needed for my build, and the only thing I needed to do now was to clear out the area and make some room. For some reason, while I was taking this house down, I looked directly at an Enderman. Good thing I'm quick on my feet. I protected myself and took out the Enderman from a safe distance. On day 81, I began construction on the last build of the video. I only had 19 days left, so I couldn't waste a moment. I decided to work day and night to make sure I had as much time as possible to get it done. It's probably pretty easy to tell, but in case you can't, this last build is a church. And it's going to be a massive church that I'm actually adding an interior to. The church itself has no function, but I do have an idea for the church that will continue to play a part in this hardcore series until I die. I'll tell you more about that when we get there, but for now, time for a time lapse. It took me 13 days, but the church is finished. I only wish we could fly around and look at it. With only 5 days left, I figured I held off long enough, and it's time to do the most dangerous thing so far of the video: go to the Nether. So with my gold boots equipped and my portal now built, it's time to enter. Honestly, I don't think I could have asked for a better spawn location. Typical Nether, no scary biomes, no lava lakes, and because of my gold boots, I don't even have to worry about these guys bothering me too much. I did manage to get a return to Cinder while fighting off my very first ghast, only to be blasted straight into a lava lake only seconds later, just when I thought I was getting good at this game too. I have no idea how I survived that. Despite my near-death experience, I thought practicing my icy bridge in the Nether was a good idea. Clearly it wasn't, but thank goodness I didn't fall into more lava. I did manage to come across another fortress at the start of day 96, and thought this might be a good opportunity to collect some blaze rods, and if I'm lucky, maybe even some wither skulls. So I made myself a little safe room and spent all of day 96 doing some farming. But because I'm impatient, I thought it would be a good idea to run headfirst into a blaze spawner, and yet again came within an inch of my life with only 4 days left in the video. Apparently I'll never learn because I fearlessly sprint bridged my way back to my portal, which was probably the least safe way I could have gotten home. Luckily though, I did make it back in one piece. We will not be returning in this video. Day 97, I started a project that will live out the entirety of this hardcore series. I built my own grave. This first one is free, but the idea is to add a tombstone every time I pop a totem. In the 200-day series, I plan for one of the first things we do is to build a raid farm. With totems on hand, I will have the freedom to be a lot more risky. And I thought this would be a fun way to remind us how many times I could have died. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now that we're in the last few days of the world, I'm kind of running out of ideas because I really thought the church and the Nether was going to take a lot more time than it did. So for all of day 97 and 98 to give us a clean slate to start with for 200 days. I also noticed my wheat farm from the start of the video was finally fully grown. On day 99, I took down the last house, and finally on day 100 I pillared up to admire the work that we had accomplished in 100 days. From the fountain to the iron farm to the church. It may not seem like much, but it's been fun, and to me, this is home. If you'd like to see me do 200 days, make sure you subscribe and click that like button so YouTube tells people this is a good place to come for hardcore content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.